Welcome to the Edge of NFT podcast with your hosts, Jeff Kelly, Ethan Janney, and Josh Krieger. We aim to bring you not only the top 1% of what's going on with NFTs today, but what will stand the test of time. We explore the nuts and bolts and the business side, but also the human element of how NFTs are changing the way we interact with the things that we love. This podcast is for the futurists and dreamers, the disruptors and creators, the fans and connectors, and the makers and doers that are pumped about this ecosystem and driving where it goes next. I think we had a few hot topics to cover as well. Some really interesting news. What do you say, Ethan?
Let's hit it.
All right.
Yep, let's hit it. So first one up for bat is TikTok's messy NFT gambit is spooking its biggest artist. At end of September, TikTok trumpeted a pair of milestones. First, announcing it had over 1 billion monthly active users worldwide. Second, it was preparing its first ever NFT collection, which was widely covered in the media. However, last Wednesday, when TikTok first announced collaboration with Lil Nas X and artist Rudy Willingham was supposed to arrive, it was nowhere to be found. The NFT was still MIA on Monday, and a source close to the situation now tells Rolling Stone the release won't be coming out at all. And 3 people with knowledge of TikTok's NFT role described it as a challenge, a mess, and a complete joke, and it may not be coming out at all. Now, this is terribly embarrassing.
Yeah, man. But look, every big drop we've seen is run into difficulty, right? And I think part of it is just it's pretty much new to everybody. I mean, you can bring a great team together, you can curate the right subject matter experts, but it's new. It's freaking brand new, and it's like, it's tough. I think that's an indication it's tough. TikTok's got a lot of resources. They're a really entrepreneurial crew, from what I can tell. They iterate. They release products quickly. They respond to their customer feedback, but even an organization that big with that many resources still is going to run into difficulty.
But what's really cool is just comparing this with the success of some of these NFT, profile pic projects, where it's just kind of like a ragtag group of ambitious artists and creators,
Yeah.
Well,
maybe they pull it off.
It's the right team. It's the right chemistry. It's the right scope. But there's an element of randomness, and there's been projects I've been a believer in, and I've seen the floor drop by 50% in the snap of a finger, but then they come roaring back. So you never know, even after the launch, what's actually going to happen.
Right. And I think it's also with the smaller projects, especially the PFPs, you basically have hyper evangelized professionals, 3, 4, 5 at max, honestly. And that's to their advantage, so they can work around the clock. They believe in the same vision, so you no longer have to do that cultural alignment. With NFTs and TikTok, I can only imagine TikTok's main mission is to drive content on their application. It's not to drop NFTs. So all of a sudden you have probably a handful of subject matter experts. They now have to convince all these different stakeholders, and some of these stakeholders think it's just a matter of uploading a JPEG and calling it a day, and others might have stronger opinions on either side. So I think that's what's really making it complex. And of course, also I think maybe it's like perhaps their PR and marketing department also overestimated how complex the situation is, and they're like, oh, well, this is like a product drop, so we did this before, and we're gonna have tease a roadshow where we'll tease the announcement and we'll have it. And I bet you what happened was the engineering department, product departments, they're like, this is nowhere close to be done. It's not going to work. And I think maybe that's how they scrambled and maybe scrapped it.
I mean, I don't mess with TikTok much, but what I would expect and what I've seen firsthand, and I've seen is, to your guys' point, right? There's a small group of people. They have a mission in mind. They launch something and they evangelize it. When you're dealing with bigger companies, there becomes multiple stakeholders, multiple opinions, and something we call scope creep, right? Oh, we'll add this feature. Oh, but we need to do this too. And then this guy puts his 2 cents in because he wants his department to be represented. So, oh, well, but we'll do this feature too. And then everybody starts adding these things. They think it's easy, but then you can't really patch it together, because once you do, things happen. Also, you might try something new. And when you try something new, there's always inevitably going to be issues and roadblocks. It's how you kind of fix them, you iterate, you support it, and you make it better. And some of these guys are just too big, right, to do that in a kind of efficient or a timely manner, right? So if they turn something on and it doesn't work, they just scrap it, right? They're not going to go back and put the time in to fix it. So who knows?
That's the
I'm
deal.
curious if there's any. I'm curious if there's any role in this of like developer mentality. I mean, I've gotten the sense that there's a handful of people who are developers. I mean, a large handful, but you know, they're folks that are excited about, you know, Solidity, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, and they're diving in to do this work. But I think a lot of people learn learn development, right? Learn programming because they want a nice, stable job that pays really well. And so, you know, those folks are still stuck in the world and learning the coding skills that are needed to fulfill those jobs. And they might be at a shortage when it comes to fulfilling the needs of a project like this. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but I'm wondering if that's part of what's going on here.
It may be, man. It's a definitely
Yeah.
culturally very distinctive. I think when you think of like developer mentality, right?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Could be that.
All right,
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I think what I hear all the time is, you know, I think business people, myself included, say, why don't we do this? Because it sounds easy. And what I've learned from my product team and our head of product is, if it sounds easy, it's because it's actually hard. Making things with technology easy is actually hard. There's no such thing as something easy. So I think business people or executives sometimes are like, oh, we'll just do this little thing. It's easy, or it's small. Well, to make technology easy, it's a lot of work, right? And I think people trip on themselves. So developers are told, oh, we'll just do this. And it's like, wait, what? So.
Yeah, just right. It was a word that we had outlawed at Territory.
on top of being easy, it might appear to be inexpensive as well, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's hit the next hot topic here. It's going to be an interesting one. FTX US launches collectibles arm in boost to Solana-based NFTs. So on Monday, U.S. wing of Sam Bankman-Fried's crypto empire said its new marketplace, FTX NFTs, will allow users to trade, mint, auction, and authenticate Solana-based NFTs. It plans to soon support NFTs on the Ethereum blockchain. The prioritization of Solana may highlight 2 realities. Bankman-Fried is heavily invested in the Solana ecosystem, and that ecosystem, while host to a handful of so-called blue chip projects, doesn't yet have a juggernaut marketplace for NFT trading. So this is very interesting, you know, sort of trying to boost an ecosystem that's in existence by highlighting it in any project.
Yeah, I mean, more marketplaces are coming from big platforms. It's expected OpenC won't process 98% of all NFT transactions forever, right? And it makes sense that people would try to, you know, incorporate, vertically integrate where they can. I mean, massive followings, right? Communities, what it's all about. Even though I think it's these communities, you know, let's say Binance's community is a bit different than, let's say, you know, the community of people that support, you know, a particular musician or something like that, right? So it's a different dynamic, but still a massive community and access to them. And so when you have that, man, you could launch almost anything and test it across that community very quickly. So not surprised at all. FTX is jamming on all kinds of fronts.
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
right.
the Solana art user interface, it's not bad. No offense to those guys, but FTX knows how to crush UI UX in a way that's very special. So a lower price plus their UX team behind this, I'm pretty.
Have you used it, the platform, or is it not out yet? Just the
Uh,
announcement.
I don't think it's out yet. I have not used it if it is out.
Got it.
I'm just saying fundamentally it makes sense. I'm sure they'll do a good job.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of the exchange. Totally.
I'm also just curious looking back here. I haven't done the research or try to extrapolate here, but we just started the podcast 6 months ago, and as we talked about various platforms, OpenC was one among several that seemed to be on the tip of people's tongues, and I'm curious, what their market share was just even a half a year ago, or 2 years ago. Have they always been 90%, or did they really rapidly gain that market share over the past year or so?
Oh, you're saying OpenC?
Yeah, OpenC.
Yeah.
How quickly has it happened recently, or has that been a long-standing?
I mean, what's funny is we were going head to head with OpenC in 2017, or trying to at AirSwap. AirSwap was mostly geared towards ERC20s, but ERC 721s were getting bigger, kind of with how we led off with podcast with the CryptoKitty story. And the thing that OpenC had was they were just they were only focusing on NFTs when no one else was focusing on it at all. And so that was already an upper hand. I remember even thinking, what is the point of this OpenC thing when it's just kind of these like low value PFPs at the time, right? There was I think there were metaverse items. There was like Gods Unchained was a really big project at that age. I still thought it was a really good idea. I checked recently; they haven't really done too much with it, or at least haven't gotten too much traction. And then they had a bunch of these PFPs. And I think what ended up happening was, since they already had basically the whole market, not that many other marketplaces exist. Once this activity started picking up, all the crypto native people would be like, oh, well, OpenC, go to OpenC. And then as the mainstream people came in this past year, I would say, with the huge rush that we had with NFTs, like late 2020, then I think the natural thing was, all right, the people that can figure out how to configure MetaMask and get ETH on their wallet and things like that, they're going to be able to play in this market. The people that can't. And I think that kind of margin is narrowed a little bit as we move along. And then effectively, then you had a bunch of other marketplaces like Rarible and things like that start to focus on certain things like UX, or UI even, or different community. Nifty is also another big one, I would say. So I think that's how they started to lose it a little bit. So I think they had more, if I had to totally guess without any metrics in my mind, and then they started to lose that traction. But it's not like it's a negative by any means. It's just the pool's getting wider, the percentage is getting lower.
I love that. Thanks for that, Jay. You had a lot of answer to my question. I appreciate that.
Yeah. As someone who watched it happen and slip away from my fingers, I know a bit about it.
We got one more topic, Ethan.
Let's do it. NFT rentals. Yes, why VCs are backing a puzzling new project. Lenders can send NFTs they want to rent out to a smart contract after determining the daily rental price and maximum rental period. Borrowers then input how long they want to own, quote unquote, the NFT, paying the rental costs plus a collateral amount equivalent to the price of the NFT, which they get back once the NFT is returned. So ReNFT is the project. They see the future of its lending protocol extending to the metaverse, where users could rent out their play-to-earn items, IP, and even digital real estate. We've been talking about this already here on the podcast. What's the value of holding some of these NFTs long term that you may not be able to utilize all the utility of? Could you still hold them and it's almost like real estate or property rentals in a sense.
Well, what's funny about ReNFT is they won our first hackathon that we threw in the fall. Money Dance.
Get out of here. Wow.
Yeah. So I'm actually glad that they're making waves, I guess, but they came up with the concept, and it was cool and it's still cool. And then actually I pull up the website because I was like, this sounds so familiar. I scrolled down our hackathons at the bottom there. So yeah, glad to see that happening. I think it's an interesting concept. Again, the open-mindedness point that I made earlier about that kind of trait that I want to pass down, but also that kind of comment with OpenC. You know, initially you want to say like rental NFTs, that sounds a little silly, but maybe from my perspective at least, want to be a little bit more open-minded about it, especially as it's still been around for now a year and change, I would say, and it seems like it's a lot bigger in reach. So that's a cool idea.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, right? I mean, so you can fragment NFTs if they're bigger. You know, you can buy more, but then you might end up buying 10 NFTs and you really just want one. And then, you know, it goes up in value. You want to have some liquidity in the short term, which is what's beautiful about blockchain. We just talked to another team that's launching another liquidity platform for NFTs. We might have as a hot topic soon, but I think this is inevitable, and it's a really good value add for the NFT industry.
Yeah, dude, there's big, for me, I look at it, there's these major inflection points that happen and have happened in the evolution of NFTs. Like, you know, well, of course, ERC 721 and then 1155 and all these different steps. This idea and how it forms to me is one of those inflection points, because it really taps into what can be possible with utility-based NFTs. Being able to rent that utility to somebody else is pretty interesting. It's pretty important. If it's like, if you have like a VFriend and you can go to the first and the third VCon, but you can't make it to the second, you could rent that, you know, to somebody. They could use it, they could attend that conference, you could still get the value from it, and then have that returned to you. So for me, it's like, man, my mind starts racing. I'm just thinking about all the different utilities where that would be interesting to be able to rent.
I mean, I'll take it a step further, right? Aside from what we're thinking about NFTs now and borrowing against them or loaning them out or earning revenue. I mean, think of NFTs as a potential mortgage, right? Like your mortgage could be an NFT, and then instead of having to go to a bank to get a home equity line, you can just rent out part of your mortgage or your deed or whatever, right? Or your car ownership. Instead of a pink slip, you have an NFT, right? And like, oh, you need a quick loan, you're going to use your car as collateral. So the real world implications are more so than just on the collectibles or digital art side. It can, you know, we're doing something with a company now for invoice factoring, right? So if you're a company, you have 30-day payment terms, you can go sell that invoice to someone else for 90 cents on the dollar, or that person can wait and redeem it for the full dollar or sell it for 95. And just, there's so much to do.
Yeah, it's big shit. And a lot of it, like you said, it's, some of it isn't the sexiest stuff, right? So you don't hear about it that much in the press, but it's all the stuff that's going to be part of our lives, period. And we may not even know it.
Exactly.